Chelsea then qualify for the knockout stages. Let's show you how they have done it in their group. Obviously, dropping those points against Flamengo, but in the end, it's okay. It's them and the Brazilian side who advance. Former Chelsea player Mario Malchior is here. Mario, what was your big takeaway from a Chelsea perspective from this game?
Enzo Fernandez.
Oh.
I think when I watched the game, I think he kicked off well. I think they started kind of slow. There wasn't like there was a lot of speed in the game. I think also the weather and everything that's happening, you understand, to them. And I think being in preseason doesn't help, of course. But I think he kicked off really well. I mean, away from the free kick that he took, you could also see that, how will I say, I've seen him when I was there, when he just arrived, and everybody has the same problem. It's the pace of the game, and sometimes it doesn't go your way straight away. But I felt like, you understand, the way he left off the season, I felt he picked up that rhythm again. And that's why I think he's now started to show his importance for the team. And that's why I was watching him closely and enjoyed it watching him.
Liam Delap, of course, so brilliant. The goalkeeper couldn't even bother to dive. Mario, how is he bedding in?
Yeah, no, for him, you know, when he scored the goal, people also have to understand that's why he's there.
What does all this mean? We talked obviously at length about Nico Jackson getting sent off in the manner that he did, Mario. Where do you foresee Jackson being at the start of this season? Will he be a Chelsea player or elsewhere?
I always said this, you know, like last season we talked about him a lot. And I said, like, competition needs to come. And when competition arrives, I think all of us, you understand, including the guys who are sitting next to you, we all dealt with competition. But dealing with competition the way Jackson at the moment is right now, I don't want to say that he's taking it on like that, because this is just an incident that happened to him. But it's not a smart way, because the way he got the red card, the moment when a new player comes, scores the goal, things are happening, setting up plays, and people are gelling in. You want to be part of that journey.
Do you know what? Maybe they need another young winger to add to the mix. Gittens looks like he's leaving Borussia Dortmund, wasn't in the game today, and heading to Stamford Bridge. You've seen a lot of him, Ali. Mm-hmm. How good is he, and what does he offer, and will he start?
Well, if you had asked me this question at the beginning of the Bundesliga season this past year, I would have said, yeah, this makes sense.
Right.
From Chelsea. And this makes sense from the perspective of Jamie Gittens as well, because he was a difference maker for Borussia Dortmund early on in the season. To be honest with you, it's because the performances haven't really called for it. It's not like when he comes on the field, he's active, he's dynamic, he's scoring goals, he's producing chances. That hasn't been the case. So consistency is a problem.
So what are Chelsea doing? What have they seen that you haven't?
Well, they're seeing the potential.
Right.
The potential of what... And that's to your initial point. A young player with potential that hasn't quite made it in terms of being a consistent performer, a consistent producer, a consistent player. You cannot say that about Jamie Gittens. The high points of Jamie Gittens tend to be very high, but he tends to disappear as well. And I do think that at some point, Chelsea has to bank on realized talent.
Yep.
On realized potential, because you may have all these young players, but you need pieces that actually blend all of this talent together, and usually that comes with experience. Chelsea may be very talented and may have a lot of players with potential, but how do you realize that potential when you don't have the experienced players to take these players along? That's where I think they're missing the point.
How long have we been talking like this?
Well, we've been talking about how they need experience to come in and kind of steady the ship.
Exactly. You need some bona fide finished articles in order to bring all the youngsters in. Mm-hmm. You can't bring another youngster in amongst guys who are still not quite reached where the level should be. So they're just compounding mistake by making another mistake. That's what it looks like.
When we have Frank on Mario, he says the same thing. He says you need some experience within this Chelsea squad to guide the ship when things aren't going very well, or else you could continue to drift as they are.
Yeah, no, I agree with what the guy said, because if you know, also when you come into a team, you want to look at certain players and you sometimes look for help. But if you are looking for help, while the ones that you are looking for help for I also need help. It's not gonna add to the game, because he comes in as a young boy, 20 years old. You understand? I know he's got an English background, but still, you understand? This kid comes in and kind of gonna look around and see like, hey guys, I just mentioned like literally a minute ago, I said Fernandes, 2 seasons he's been there, and now he's starting to develop to be himself. So what do you want to bring in a 20-year-old kid and maybe get lost there and takes also a couple of more years? We're not disputing about the talent that the kid has. He has the speed, he has a dribble. He has, he likes taking players on. No, we know that. But now we're talking about, this is something that they had done prior already. And now they have a lot of numbers. For me, now it comes down, I know you can try the young boys to come on, but still you have to be careful, because buying a lot, make us also know that you have an idea what you're doing. And sometimes I don't want it to be just a number.
Yeah, Mario, is there anything that would make you second guess going to Chelsea because of everything that we've just discussed, if you're Gittens?
My question will be, what's going to happen to the other wingers when I come? Mm-hmm. Because my question will be, because it will not come down to the question of like, look, I believe in myself as an individual, and I want to do a step forward, and I feel like, okay, I did my time maybe there where I am now in Dortmund, and now I want to go, my background, I want to go back to England, I'm playing in London, great club, okay, let's say that. But then the question comes now, only the wingers. I'm going to ask you, like, what is going to happen with, is Madueke going to stay? The rumors are going around. What's going to happen to Neto? What are you going to do? What are you guys' plans? So I know what to do if I come or if I make the decision to stay where I am.
So we asked Mario, when it comes to the end of the season, what would make him happy? What would be described as a successful campaign for Chelsea given the competitions that they're in? Let's take a look at what Mario said. 2nd or 3rd in the league, round of 16 in the Champions League, very generous. Quarterfinals of the FA Cup, and this is where Chelsea is now, basically, in Mario's eyes, a Carabao Cup side. Mario?
Yes, I said so. The Premier League is like, okay, they got to the Champions League, so the top 4, and it was like, they got just over the line. I think this season they need to make sure that they are part of that journey without just making it. When it comes to maybe the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, what I felt like they need to go for one cup that, has some silverware in this season. Going for the league, I said that already prior to this. I said last season, I wanted them to be Champions League. I didn't know it was going to be that hard, of course, but they made it. And this season that's coming, I don't put them as a team that's already going to fight for the title, because I felt like there's so much happening, so much investment, so much turbulence at the club. I think it needs to calm down even more than they already did. And then after that, they can look and go in after all the trophies that they want. But if I will put them like winning the Premier League, Champions League, I think that's a step too high for me.
More importantly, do we like Mario better with the hair just flowing like it was in that picture, or Mario with this look right now?
I don't know.
I prefer this.
I know what's happened to Mario's teeth in that picture. when you go to Chelsea. Chelsea are a weird one, aren't they?
God.
Yeah. Because last season, they were the best of a bad bunch. However you sell it, yes, they ended the season well, but overall, they made the most of other teams falling over each other.
Yeah.
This season, Liverpool have done what Liverpool have done. Manchester City have strengthened. Yep. Arsenal, of course, have brought in new faces. So if you're Chelsea, it's almost you're playing for that 4th spot, aren't you?
I think if Chelsea can comfortably get the 4th spot, then that's a step forward, in my opinion.
Okay.
The fact, all the things you said, I mean, like there was little spells where they were great, and then they fell off the cliff, and then they were good for a couple, and then they went back again. So if they can get some sort of consistency, not just with the results, but with the lineup. I mean, I have no idea what the back 4 is going to be every time Chelsea steps on the field. I've got absolutely no idea. You don't know who well, they need a goalkeeper. So how do you get comfortably in the top 4 if after such a long period of time you still don't have a settled back line? I don't think that happens. So again, they're going to be fighting till the very end. But for me, that would be, if I'm a Chelsea fan, I want to comfortably get in the top 4. And if you can get an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup, that's the bonus.
That's a nice bonus.
That's the bonus. Get through the first stage of the Champions League.
Big table.
Again, but yeah. priority should be comfortable 4th spot at least.
Winner takes all game then tomorrow as Juventus take on Manchester City. City need to win it to guarantee top spot in Group G. Let's hear from some of their teams, shall we, ahead of the tie. We'll hear from Rodri in the moment. But first, Pep Guardiola spoke to the media in the first question from our very own Rob Dawson.
Obviously, the Juventus game is in theory your biggest test of this group stage, and I know you've spoken about how difficult last season was, and you've come here and said this is a fresh start and it's a new season. Do you feel like the players have been able to put what happened last season out of their minds when they're approaching a big game against Juventus, and there won't be any kind of hangover from some of the results possibly that they had last season?
The season is over. When we won the treble and quadruples and so on, it was over. It's past. So of course we don't want to live again the season that we lived last season, but it's past. So when I see what we can build, and I see many things that I like in terms of connection between the players that helps to be together, that because during the season we had a lot of time together, but training session home, travel, game home. Here we are 24, 27 together, and that's nice. So I'm seeing good things. The season will be tough, we know it, but in the other terms, I'm so positive that we will do it many, many good things.
May I just ask you about the heat, because it's very hot. We're actually about 2 hours later than kick-off tomorrow. How do you think your players will deal with that? You've been here 2 weeks. And also, is it too early for Rodri maybe to make a start tomorrow?
Sorry?
Is it also too early for Rodri to make a start tomorrow in this sort of heat?
No, but the hot is it's obviously, so we cannot change it, right? So it's better to play like the last stadium, like we played. That was fantastic, but I think all the teams have to handle it. So it's what it is for the new World Cup, next World Cup. The people know it already. But yeah, we have to be ready to suffer. And Rodri, yeah, can play, cannot play. Of course, it's not for 90 minutes, but play the last minute 30 minutes, 35. So. Is making a step forward. The last 3-4 days didn't have some no problems, but some niggles that sometimes has. Yeah, he's happy that we can add minutes to him.
Well, I feel very good, very happy to be here. Yeah, an amazing tournament to start again to play football. But yeah, really excited to join the team again, join them in the pitch, the most important thing. I'm very excited to work with them and win. That's the aim of today. It is a massive opportunity for me to come back. Maybe if this tournament doesn't happen, I will be on holidays. But for me individually, it's a great opportunity to come back at the highest level and play a tournament we never played.
Psychologically, what's it like coming back from an injury, no matter how grave it's been, to go and play? To go and challenge, to put yourself on the line once again?
I think there are two angles to look at this. One, the excitement of getting back on the field. The fact that this is what you were born to do and you haven't been able to do it, was taken away from you because of the injury. And so you're excited to get back on the field. You're excited to play in a game that matters. And then the other side of that is, can I trust my body?
Right.
And the only way that you can answer that question, if you're Rodri or any player who's been out for a lengthy period of time, is actually being out on the field and get on the turn, get on the half turn, being able to manipulate the ball from right to left, and being able to withstand a challenge. Somebody comes at you from a awkward angle, and you're able to withstand the challenge with strength, and then you're able to play out of pressure. The more you do that, and not in practice, but actually in game pace, that's when you start thinking, okay, I'm feeling closer to what I know I can do. The more I do this, the more repetitions I get, the more confidence I get. I believe that my body can now withstand all this pressure, that my body's not going to betray me. Now let me just do the things that I know how to do naturally.
As a coach, how do you manage that?
To be honest, in today's game, you pick one of your staff and say, right, your job is to make sure this guy gets through. And that's it.
What does that mean?
That means when you're coming back from a long time out, and I made the mistake, you're excited.
Yes.
And so you just go at 100 miles an hour.
Okay.
And you need somebody to pull you in. And if you don't have anybody to pull you in, then you end up missing more time. I was out for another 10 days after I'd been out for 6 months.
Oh.
I just
It's
went
not a great
crazy.
story, is it?
I just went crazy.
6 months. I thought it was going to be longer than 10 days.
No, my groin went because I overdid it. Now, in today's game, somebody should be watching him every step of the way, pulling him out when they need to. When he does a fair bit, get him out. It shouldn't be down to Rodri.
Okay.
You know, you don't go to Rodri and say, how are you feeling? Because he's desperate. He wants to keep playing and running and chasing and everything else. So, yeah. If I'm Man City, I've got one man. This is your job for the next 4 weeks, 4 months, whatever it takes. And you make sure that he doesn't overdo it.
Mario, take it into a mindset as a professional coming back and playing in a game as opposed to training where you know your body's going to be put on the line.
Yeah, because just what the guy said, and the biggest challenge you have as a player who comes back then is going to be that you are going to demand yourself, how long is it going to take me to do the things before I had the injury? And that is going to be his biggest question. So for me, like when I went through that was the question I was asking myself. So I'm sure he's going to ask himself too, because he didn't win the Golden Ball because it wasn't a player that could achieve the things that he showed us. So he's going to ask himself, how long is it going to take me to get back to that rhythm so I can produce and be important again for my team? And I think that is going to be the biggest clock that no one can stop you from doing. Like what Stevie said, guarantee you, that is 100% you need that. You need protection because as an individual, we are not good at that. We just want to play football.
As much as we hear Pep Guardiola, Rob's back with us, Rob, talking about how he wants to put last season behind us, focus on a new campaign. No doubt about it. The main thing about this tournament, if you're Pep Guardiola, is making sure you don't get any big injuries, in particular Rodri.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. You know, the guys in the studio there are talking about players coming back after long injuries, and the last thing you want is for him to break down again. And you know, as much as Pep Guardiola is talking about wanting to win this tournament, you're preparing in the right way, preparing as if these games are Champions League games. In the back of his mind, he'll just want to get through as best he can. Clearly, he wants to get through to the latter stages. It would be lovely if they won it. You know, there's a lot of money on the line for Man City as a football club. But really, he wants to start the Premier League season in the best shape possible, and that means having Rodri fit and available. And you know, as the guys have said in the studio, you know, Rodri's been pushing to play since around April. It wasn't until late May that he finally got back in the team. He's desperate to play in this tournament. He's had a couple of substitute appearances. He says that he's ready to start against Juventus. But Pep Guardiola will be thinking, well, there's no point having him start and then having to sort of hobble off after 25 minutes if it means he misses the start of the Premier League season. You know, everyone knows that the Premier League is the main objective for Man City this season, and they need Rodri fit for that.
Rob, looking at it overall, obviously you've been with Manchester City since they touched down in the stage. You've been to their 2 games, training sessions as well. Of the new players, who has caught the eye for you?
Well, I think Aït-Nouri, the left-back, is the one in the last game who was particularly good. I mean, it's been a long time since City have had a recognised left-back. It's been Josko Vardiol for a couple of seasons. He's obviously a centre-half. You would rather play at centre-half. When Aït-Nouri started against Al Ain in the last game in Atlanta, it was noticeable how much more City were attacking down the left-hand side. You know, the way Pep set up, it was to give Aït-Nouri a lot of space down the left. You know, they encouraged him to get on the ball, get the ball higher up, you know, attack their defence, put crosses in, even run into the box himself. So, you know, of all sort of 4 of those new signings, it's Aït-Nouri that's been the most impressive. We haven't seen an awful lot of any of them, really, because Pep Guardiola has been so cautious with his team selection. It's been 2 separate 11s for the first 2 games, and we expect more changes for the Juventus game tomorrow. But out of all 3, I think City fans will be looking at it and saying, but it's been an awful long time since we had an attacking left-back in the squad. And Aït-Nouri, who's Premier League proven at Wolves, is that guy.
It'll be interesting to see, of course, how the ball will bounce tomorrow. This has been a big talking point over the last few days since the Club World Cup kicked off here in the States. The pitches aren't great at all. It holds up, the ball barely bounces, and it's tough on the knees as well. Hopefully, it's something that someone will look at going into the World Cup next year. Meanwhile, PSG's coach Luis Enrique said this about rabbits.
A mí me importa el estado del terreno de juego. Y lo digo hoy que ganamos. O sea, esto dista mucho de los estados del terreno de juego en Europa. Mucho. Están bien, pero el balón bota como si fuera un conejo y hoy, por ejemplo, al ser un campo artificial anteriormente y ahora es un campo de césped natural, se tiene que regar a mano, lo han regado al descanso, pero el campo se seca a los 10 minutos. para nuestro juego es un problema. Claro, no lo vamos a poner como excusa, lo digo hoy que hemos ganado. Pero es un problema. No puedes jugar al nivel que tú quieres. Y creo que esto es una cosa que FIFA sí que tiene que tener en cuenta. No solo el estado del terreno de los estadios, sino el de los campos de entrenamiento. Porque si pretendemos que sea la mejor competición del mundo, no me imagino una cancha de la NBA con agujeros. No me la imagino. Pues nosotros jugamos en estadios en los que el balón parece más un conejo que un balón. A nosotros nos perjudica. A otros les puede beneficiar.
Oh, NBA Finals, there's some holes in the court. I think entertaining. Rob, are you hearing similar things from Manchester City?
No, I mean, to be honest, they haven't been talking about the pitches too much. I mean, in terms of conditions for City, it's been all about the heat. And, we've just heard Pep Guardiola in his press conference there talking about the heat, the trouble of playing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Orlando. They played their last game in Atlanta in an air-conditioned stadium at 9 o'clock. He was talking about how the rhythm of that game was an awful lot quicker than their first game, which was at 12 o'clock in Philadelphia. He's told the fans that are coming here tomorrow to bring lots of water, bring their hats, bring towels for their necks because it's going to be so hot. It's going to impact his team selection. So the conditions certainly are playing a part. I know some of the other teams have talked about the ball and the pitches, all things that are going to need to be sorted out before the World Cup comes here in the year. But for City, the main topic really has been about the heat and what it's going to be like playing Juventus here tomorrow.
Mario, I suppose people who play amateur football every week will say, boo-hoo, look at the state of the pitches that we have to play on. Adapt your game. You're supposed to be the best in the world. Get on with it.
I understand that, Dan, and I knew that question was going to come. But you have to also look, we all started there. Now we are professional footballers. We expect the way City plays, the way Real Madrid plays, the way PSG plays. They don't play with football with the ball being through the air. It's all on the floor. So if, the ball, if the way they pass and the rhythm of the play, if it affects, because that clearly does, the way the pitch is, it doesn't help them. So that's why they're going to talk about that. And then they have two battles now. They have the weather and they have the field. Look, if you have one, the weather, everybody has that. But then the field almost becomes an individual for them because it's so advanced to them. The ones who are playing against them and have a bad field, they don't care because it slows them down, so it's more advantage to them. So for me, I don't want him, of course, not to focus on the field, but it's clearly something that's definitely going to disturb them if they want to move forward. And I hope they can take care of that, and that's just the way it's always been, I think, in MLS at certain places. But Atlanta, definitely, of course. I played in Qatar. One stadium we had AC. I had the best game of my life. And the rest, with the heat, was difficult. I can tell you, difficult.
Stevie, talk to us about the difference this made.
It's chalk and cheese. The best side are the ones that will be affected the most. At the end, if I'm coaching against PSG, I'm telling my players to stick the ball in behind every single time. Don't get caught with it, try to knock it around the back. Stick it in behind and then get on top of them. And then it becomes a physical game as opposed to a game of football. And I love how FIFA just keep turning around saying, don't worry, it'll be sorted. Absolute nonsense. How are they going to sort it? Because they're only going to play in 80,000 seat stadiums and the majority of them have got artificial turf. So they've got no choice.
They've got some experts coming, gardening experts.
Yeah, that'll be. I will believe that when I see it, Dan. I've been hearing this since I came to this country in '98 about how they're going to do this and do that. I mean, it's not going to happen. So I tell you, the players better get used to it because when the World Cup comes around, we're still going to be talking about pitches that the ball doesn't bounce.
To your point, Stevie, this is not a new problem. This is not a new issue here in the United States. It's been going on forever. The difference is that these teams that come usually for preseason competitions or games, friendlies here in the United States, they play in that particular stadium with that bad pitch, with that bad feel, and then they move on and go on to the other stadium. They're not actually participating and hanging around long enough to say, wait a minute, we're still playing on this? This is still the training facility? This is still the surface that we're going to play in? And so now it becomes an issue. Why does it become an issue? Because this is a competition that FIFA is putting out there as a big deal. It's supposed to be a big deal. Well, if it is a big deal, one of the things that you have to make a priority is field conditions. It's a bare minimum. This should be immaculate surfaces because it is indeed the standard that FIFA should set. Only an issue here. And while it's not necessarily a FIFA tournament, it's a CONMEBOL tournament. If we go back a year ago in Copa America, we were having the same discussion. We were having the discussion about SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, that the dimensions were not what they needed to be, that the conditions of the field was not what it needed to be. We were having the same discussion about AT&T Stadium in Dallas, that the surface was not what it needed to be, that the ball is not bouncing the way that it should. Why am I bringing the stadiums up? Because if you spin it forward now a year, these are stadiums that will host important matches in the World Cup.
They're going to get it fixed, Ali, don't worry.
And in the biggest stage, in the biggest stage, in the most important sporting event in the world, we're concerned about what the field conditions are going to be. I'll take it a step further. The final of the World Cup is at MetLife in New York. Artificial turf. So you're going to have to lay the sod on top of it. It's the same conversation that we're having about all these other stadiums. So I'm not an agronomist. I'm not an expert on grass. I don't know how it grows and what it does and what you need.
And a watermus?
Oh my God. An agronomist. In any case, I do not have a handle for all of this. But what I would say is that most of the stadiums that we're talking about are American football stadiums. The NFL season is over for most teams, and certainly for my Dallas Cowboys, ahead of February. We're not making it to the Super Bowl. And so once the season is over, and you are FIFA, and you're thinking about how are you going to make this better, again, I'm not an expert, but you got to rip up the turf. You got to take the turf out. And then you got to do the layers that you need to do in order to provide the actual surface that is required for these fields to feel like a natural surface. You bring the sod in, and then you allow the springtime for this grass to settle. Now, I'm just thinking logically. I don't know how much this is going to cost. I don't know. Again, I'm no expert. But if you want this to feel like natural grass, you got to get rid of the turf underneath it.
Way too sensible, Ali. You're forgetting one very important thing.
No.
The bottom line.
Oh, no, but FIFA got loads
Taking
of
away
money.
the bottom line by doing what Ali said isn't going to happen.
This, of course, is where he's been heavily linked to join with his former manager. What can you give us the latest on this?
Well, the United are now very, very confident that that deal is going to get done. There was a little bit of a complication with Tottenham's interest. Obviously, Tottenham have hired Mbeumo's old Brentford manager, Thomas Frank, and there was a lot of interest coming from Spurs. So something that United had to deal with. United were always relatively confident that Mbeumo would pick Old Trafford. It seems like he has done. And now it's just about getting that deal over the line. That we understand that the base fee of around £60 million is agreed, and now it's about what add-ons are going to be included, the structure of the payments. But United's certainly very, very confident that this is going to get done, and they're returning to pre-season training in early July. They've got a tour of the United States to come. I think they fly out on around the 22nd of July. The expectation from Man United is that Brian Mbeumo will be on that plane to Chicago when they leave.
Luka Modric has won us lots as a footballer, but does he want to go to bed and turn his back on the game and maybe just play some golf and wake up late and wear your slippers out while walking the dog? No, Stevie, he doesn't. No. He wants to keep playing, and Milan is his destination according to reports. Does this make sense?
It makes sense from the point of view that it's a high-profile club and he's still able to perform. The bit that doesn't make sense is, when he was speaking to the sporting director at Milan, he asked if they're going to be competing for a title. And I've got to assume the sporting director said yes. I'm not quite sure that wasn't a pokey pie, because I don't believe that Milan are going to be going for the Serie A title next year. So it's going to be nice to watch Luka Modric playing again, but he ain't going to win a championship with AC Milan. And that's what I think he thinks is going to maybe happen.
Why does he think that? Because he got told? Surely he can look. Well, he's not going into this completely blind. He's going into it because he wants to experience a new city, surely. He wants to experience a new league.
All these guys are salesmen now. It's all about, we're looking to do this.
If I'm Luka Modric, I'm not going to blindly go to Milan and just rely on one conversation with their sporting director that I'm going to win championships. I might have a little look. Oh, where did they finish in the table last season? Oh, they really struggled. They had a bad campaign.
Then maybe he just said, you know what, we'd like to come and play for Milan. We're a high-profile club. Don't worry about it. We're not going to win the championship. but we'd love you to come and
you're
play for
suggesting
us.
that this phone call was the turning point in the whole...
I'm suggesting that the meetings that Modric would have with the people from Milan is all positive about how they're going to win the championship.
He's not daft, is he? He knows exactly what he's walking into, surely.
Okay. All right.
I think it's a convenient relationship in which both are going to use each other. Modric is using Milan so that he can get consistent playing time ahead of the World Cup. That's what he wants. He is an upgrade to whatever they have going on in that midfield because he can still play. Can he do it consistently? Can he do it over a long period of time? That's a different question. But Luka Modric believes that he needs the minutes, that he wants a minute, and that those minutes will be useful for him to be ready for the World Cup.
Welcome into today's edition of Extra Time. Thank you very much for your questions. Stevie and Ali here in the studio, Mario as well. Mario, I saw you posting quite a banquet on your Insta stories today. Where were you eating? What were you up to? Good. Right.
If anybody asks me, what do you need? I don't need a lot. Just eat food with my family, some chicken. I like keep it simple.
Yeah?
Eat some nice meat. Meat is my thing.
Stevie's favourite meal of the day is breakfast. Would you say that breakfast is your favourite out of breakfast, lunch and dinner, Mario?
Well, there's plenty of meat in it.
No, I would say
Bacon,
dinner is my
sausage.
favorite.
Yes, I think
not
normal
breakfast.
people would say dinner. There we are. What everyone we've asked has said dinner. Stevie, last season, Szoboszlai ran so much, almost covering the ground of two players. As Salah stayed in the field, now with Wirtz and also an attack-minded right-back, will that have an impact? He's talking about off the ball and tracking back, that sort of work rate. Is there a concern it'll be too much?
No, not really.
No?
No. I'm not quite sure what the question is.
The question is, you're going to lose Szoboszlai, yeah? Because Wirtz is going to come in and take his place in the starting 11 in whatever way this new formation is going to work out.
Right.
Are you going to miss his work rate because you won't have Salah tracking back or Wirtz?
I don't expect to.
Right.
Because Slot has to figure a way out of plugging that gap.
Okay.
That if Szoboszlai doesn't start, that he's left. Whether it's by different formation, shuffling, sticking Gravenberg further forward. I mean, he's got to come up with something that picks up the slack that if Szoboszlai's not
So no need to worry. Don't panic.
I don't think so, no.
Okay, all right, then.
I don't think so.
Mario, Jonathan David deal to Juventus is in jeopardy because his agent wants 15 million euros. How much do players know about their agent's demands? Possibly this is the first he's hearing of it. How would you handle the situation?
I think, look, I can only talk from my own experience. Before I go to a club, I have a meeting with my agent and I talk regarding the finance. He explains everything to me. I listen to it and you can clearly ask him as well, what is your take in the deal? And if he starts stuttering or he doesn't want to tell you that, then you know that you're not with the right agent. So then you don't have no surprises when you sit on the table. So clearly when he sat on the table, with me on the table, when I do the check-in, I always have my sister on the table. So I always have somebody part of my family to be part of the deal. So there was no surprises. But if my agent does something like that and start to take a big cut of my deal, you understand, in the sense of like the deal won't go through while I want to go to that team, I might have a problem with the agent and say to the agent he might have to leave. And I did it in the beginning of my first deal at Ajax. I told him I want 2 years at Ajax at that time. Ajax wanted to give me 5 years. And he kind of said like, that's going to be difficult. Then I clearly said to him, listen, either you come with me in the room. My sister actually told him, said either you come with us or you stay here, the lawyer comes with us. And then he said, no, I come. That was the beginning of the moment where he understood that you do how we want it, not the other way around.
And then during all your moves, when you went to Chelsea and then beyond, did you have the same agent throughout that time?
I had the same agent, the same agent all the way through to my career. So that's why, because that moment when it happened, when I told you about the situation at Ajax was kind of like my second deal. And that moment was also the 2 years. He thought Ajax wasn't going to give that. But Ajax knew at that point that I could go to Real Madrid. And at that point, Ajax was not in the right situation, but I chose to stay with my family because of family reasons, you understand, at that time. And I said, I will not leave, and I stay in Amsterdam. And so I signed a deal for 2 years.
How do you go about getting an agent at that age? Because you obviously can't just go onto LinkedIn or something like that. You know, what is the process of finding the agent that you want?
It's so interesting. I love it. You remember the time when the phones came out with the intercom? There was like, now it's a normality, right? We can put it on speaker.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was something like kind of special. My mom had one. So what I did, I had like 3 or 4 agents. I called them and I put it on speaker and put all my brothers and sisters and my mom around the call. And they didn't know they were around the call, but they were only speaking to me and they were listening with me. And after, when I dropped the call, we all look at each other and we discuss the agent. And one agent made the biggest mistake ever. He comes and he says to me, yeah, I'm gonna get you to another club. And then I go with your mom for lunch and this and that. And I go like, my mom for lunch?
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
No.
No, I'm playing football to take care of my mom. I don't need a dude to come in the house and start taking care of my mom. No, my job is to do it myself. So that guy, I got rid of him straight away. And then my own agent said like, that time I didn't have him yet as an agent. He said, this is your starting deal. It's like a standard one. You kind of don't need anybody for this one. But then after that, we will reconnect and see if you still want to work with me. And I ended up picking him because he had most of the top players in Holland at that time. So I said like, okay, I joined him.
Ali, what about yourself? Did you represent yourself? Did you have an agent?
I had an agent, yeah. And obviously this doesn't apply to me in particular, but I'm over the last 20 years or so, the actual sort of the figure of the agent has now garner a whole lot more importance and value than what it had in the past.
Right.
To the point to where the agents themselves have become main characters in where players and coaches go. And because of the transfer fees being out of control, then obviously there's an investment by the agents in saying, yeah, if I'm a main player in this transaction, then I need to be rewarded as such and compensated as such. I think sometimes agents lose sight of the fact that they are what they are because of the players. Because of the players. The players are the ones that should garner the compensation. The players are the ones that are worth the money, the transfer fee, the transaction. They're started by the quality of the players. Some of these agents think that they're above the players. You're not an agent without the player.
Yeah.
And so that would, if I were Jonathan David in this particular circumstance, that would be my reminder to the agent. You should have my best interest in mind ahead of your personal interest. You'll benefit from this, but I should be the one fully benefiting from this because I am the one that has generated this interest given my skill, my talent, and my ability to play this game.
Right, let's take it back. Little Stevie, Ayr United. I imagine when you signed for Ayr, you didn't need an agent?
I didn't have an agent, no.
No,
I went any agents.
But then from Ayr to Liverpool, I imagine there was one. How did you go about? No?
No, the manager negotiated.
So the manager of Ayr
negotiated my wages.
Okay.
He did it all for me.
And then what about while you were at Liverpool?
Well, eventually, I had an agent because it almost kind of, it was almost like somebody opened the door and it all ran through because all of a sudden everybody was leaving messages and trying to get in touch with you.
Right.
And so I ended up with a guy called John Mack, and one of the reasons I ended up with him was because every other agent wants you to sign with them at the time.
Okay.
You had to sign. But officially, were you? And I was like, I'm scared of signing anything.
Sure.
And I basically said to him, I said, look, I don't need to sign with you. I said, if I need some advice and some help,
right,
then whatever your cut is, we'll have a conversation, and then if we do something, then I'll pay you the percentage that it is. But I'm not signing anything. And he was fine with it. Whereas 2 or 3 other ones I'd spoken to were like, oh, you need to sign and you need to, I'm like, oh, no.
So fast forward to you're in charge of the Revs.
Oh, nightmare.
And I imagine it's like it's like car warranty time, isn't it? Everybody calling you all the time saying, I've got this right back here, I've got this fantastic striker here, I've got this guy.
It's a nightmare, and I'm only guessing here, right? This is my own personal take. I could be wrong. But the lower down the ladder you go, the worse, in my opinion, the agents are.
Well, it would make sense.
Because they're all scraping around for every dollar or pound or whatever it is, and they'll say and do anything to try and get you to take the player.
And what sort of things have you heard down the line?
Well, I'll take it's an example. We signed a guy, a Croatian guy, Marko somebody, right? And when we signed him, spoke to the agent, and he started on about, you know, if he does well, and when are we going to? I said, look, if he does well, then we'll think about, renegotiating the contract. I said, it benefits us, it benefits you, and everybody wins. He's like, oh yeah. Anyway, so Marko plays about 6 games, scored a couple of goals. This guy was on the phone every 2 minutes, and then I actually met him underneath the stadium at Gillette one day, and he came straight up to me, and I'm thinking, what's up? This guy doesn't look happy, and he came straight to me and said, "You lied to me," and I'll tell you what, I nearly ripped his head off. Honestly, I had to hold myself.
This is only after 6 games, so obviously.
After about 6 games, something like that. And I went, I beg your pardon. He said, you said that if Marko did well, you'd renegotiate the contract. Anyway, I went off on him. I used some expletives.
No.
And left him in no doubt whatsoever where the door was, and don't come back through it.
And how did that end? Did you get a new contract? Did he keep it in? Well, the fact you couldn't remember his second name suggests that. No.
No, well, he got injured. He actually got a bad injury. He hurt his knee.
Right.
So that
was the end of that.
Yeah,
Marko, somebody was one hell of a player.
Ali, $30 million for Cardoso to Atleti. Will playing in the US men's national team jersey every week with Atleti transfer his La Liga performance to international level. So obviously he hasn't been very good, has he? Domestically he's been well.
Yeah, so he was really good for Betis. And so much so that he garnered the attention of Diego Simeone, and Diego Simeone looked at that player and said, that's the kind of guy that we need in our team. That would suggest that Johnny Cardoso would be an important part for the national team here in the United States. But his performances with the United States have not been very good. They have been mistake-laden. And I think there's a lot of pressure on Johnny Cardoso to translate his club level to international level. And here's what I would say. It doesn't happen for every player. A lot of players, and I'm sure that
we're sat next to one, aren't we? Who internationally didn't put the same sort of performances in.
See what? You know what? I didn't want to point the finger, and then he made it personal. Regardless, all I'm saying is.
I don't know what he said.
I said you were rubbish for Scotland.
All I'm saying is a lot of players have a lot of club success, and for whatever reason, they're unable to find the same confidence and same level, the same rhythm of play. And actually, there are some that struggle with the club, are called into the national team.
Yeah. And that's Rodriguez.
Correct. And that's where they find their joy and happiness. So it's not a perfect science. If you're going to somehow manufacture and create confidence, if you're Johnny Cardoso, start by completing the simple passes, which he hasn't been able to do with the United States. He does that, then you move on to the next step and the next phase of his evolution.
Johnny Cardoso is a classic example of a guy who will function to his highest level in a team like Betis or Atleti or anywhere else because there's no light on him. He's doing his job. He's getting his work done.
Right.
He's doing what he's supposed to do. And there's nothing else shining on him. And then when he comes to the US, all of a sudden, everybody thinks he has to be this guy, this certain type of player.
I don't know, Steve, is that true?
100%.
How bright are the lights in the US?
100%.
Who cares about Johnny Cardoso?
Well, you don't, but US players do.
Yeah, but,
and US
what
players...
I'm saying is, like, you're talking about this spotlight. It's like, oh, look, the whole world's looking at me.
All right,
What's it?
All right, it's not a spotlight, but
7 hurt.
He can go into a team like Atleti and function and be good for them because he's not trying to be something he's maybe not when he goes with the national team. It happens to lots and lots of players, Dan. When you play for your international side, all of a sudden you think you have to do something else because you're in the international team. And Cardoso, to me, is 100% one of those guys who's great with his club team, but when it comes to the national team, all of a sudden he changes the way he thinks and plays.
Mario, what was the hardest part of moving to a new country to join a different team?
I think the hardest part for you is for an individual. I think I had guys, you know, in the first team of Ajax. They told me one advice they gave me. They said, if you go abroad, don't go and win trophies and you are not part of the journey. So make sure that you, wherever you go, that you are part of that journey. So don't sign for a club because they promise you so much glory and you know you're never going to be part of the journey. So that, I think, was one of the key things, because people say, like, you have the contract, you have the finance, you have the city and everything, but that only will last for, like, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that we enjoy it if you arrive. But after that, there's only one thing that makes a footballer happy, is standing on the field and being part of the 11. And that was, like, kind of my focus. So I say that is the key thing when you go abroad. That I was focusing on at Chelsea. I had to play.
Ali, MLS salary. I'm going to jump in actually halfway through this question. MLS salaries were just released. Mm-hmm. What is that day like in the locker room? Is there any reaction? Because what happens here in the States is that everything is public, yeah? The MLS salary, well, you can add and take away, and Stevie would certainly suggest that maybe they're not quite as accurate as you think they are. Mm-hmm. However, what's that like in the locker room when you're looking at a guy next to you who you know what he's on?
Yeah, well, you have to remember that I was part of MLS 1.0.
Mm-hmm. Different now, aren't it?
And so...
This is where you've spoken before about you needed to get your lunch at training because you couldn't afford it anywhere else.
Correct. As a rookie in Major League Soccer with the LA Galaxy, I was in a salary that basically I had to coach kids in the afternoon in order to supplement the lifestyle, if you will. And when I say the lifestyle, that just means paying for rent and paying and making my car payments. That's what the lifestyle was. And yet, to your point, us rookies, we would hang out after the team meals, and whatever the leftovers were, we took them home with us because that saved us $30, $40 in having to eat out that night or the next night or whatever it may be. It just saved us money, and whatever you could save, it was useful. So that was the reality of Major League Soccer then. So when the list of salaries came out, it was laughable, really.
Was there any resentment in the others?
No, well. Okay, so back then, what was the maximum salary, and we're talking years upon years ago, so the benchmark was $250,000 a year.
Right.
So if you were a big timer, you were making that plus whatever the other deals that you had on the side, either with Nike or some of the other companies that would supplement your salary. And the big timers, you knew who they were.
Right.
And so the next tier, that's perhaps the tier that got the most criticism, because then you would look at a guy that hadn't done anything,
right,
but was some sort of hot shot.
And would that be vocalized?
Well, I think among the players, yes, unless he was your teammate. But among the players, this guy?
Yeah.
What? It also served as a benchmark for you as a player when you went to negotiate your contract. You were like, wait a minute.
This guy's on X.
So basically, you got me on the cheap. I was desperate to sign a deal. I signed this deal, but this guy, who I'm comparable with, in fact, better and more productive than, look at what he's making. And so it would serve as a negotiating tool but by then, MLS really had you. They had all the control. You realize in a contract with Major League Soccer early on, it was a 1 year plus 3 option years.
And
it was their option. Wow. It was never your option. And guess what? It was a 5% increase. But again, you were so limited that you had to sign this deal because it was the way that you were gonna make it as a professional. And eventually you will renegotiate. Here's the other thing that MLS did that was a lot of fun. Let's say you're in one of these really crappy deals, right?
Yeah.
In which you're not making a whole lot of money, and you get interest from abroad. Now, they're not willing to pay you, or at least back then, they were not willing to pay you a higher salary, but they value you above what your salary was.
Take value out of the market.
Out of the market, so that whoever was interested in you would have to overpay for you. And it's like, wait a minute, now I'm a hot commodity? Now I'm a valuable asset to this league? When we're negotiating my contract, I was on the cheap. But now that I can leave, now I'm good looking? Now I'm sexy?
Yeah.
Now you want me? So that changed towards the end of my stay in MLS. It changed because the salaries began to change. And then people were making money that you were kind of going, what in God's green earth is happening here? Especially when I'm telling you that my first reality in MLS was hanging out to wait for food. And when the salaries come out now in MLS, let me tell you, yes, I am that person that goes, I was 20 years early to the party.
Yep.
And man, do I wish I was at the party right now.
But think, if you made the money then you wouldn't be here with us now. So, swings and roundabouts, Sally. Every cloud has
Again,
a silver lining.
I was 20 years early to the party.
You must have hated this day as a coach, yeah?
It was awful. That was absolutely awful. You know, fortunately, I never got involved in any of the contract things. I kept it the way.
No.
Right.
Because if I had been involved in it, I wouldn't have lasted.
In what way? What do you mean?
Well, the conflicts with the players.
Right.
I mean,
So you would always say, well, it's Burnsy who does it. So you'll be able to pass the buck completely.
Sunil and Bonzi completely pass the buck. I'll try and do what I can for you.
Right.
All that, you know, all that stuff.
But you had to have someone to take the fall for you.
But the worst thing back then was that you're trying to hold people to a standard of professionalism when you're paying them pennies.
I see.
And they can't do. They can't possibly. I mean, how professional is it that Ali, on a Friday afternoon when he should be in his bed getting ready for the game on a Saturday, in the middle of August or July, when it's 1,000 degrees like we're going through now, has to be on his feet all day? And well, he's training in the morning, and then he goes out in the afternoon. He's on his feet all afternoon for maybe 3-4 hours, and then he's got to turn up, and I'm expecting him to be at it for the game. I mean, some of the things that they had to go through. Now, the guys now are getting the benefit of what Ali and other guys were doing back then.
Right.
But my goodness, the money some of them are getting now for what they actually produce.
Final question, Steve. We could do a whole show on this, but just make it brief. Do you want to share any stories about your playing experience in Mexico for Scotland?
Oh,
this was 1986, Mexico World Cup.
The one thing I always remember was playing West Germany. It was West Germany at the time.
Right.
And I think we kicked off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was just unreal. You couldn't.
Oh, look, what are you getting booked for here, Stevie?
Oh, I don't know.
I like the shorts, though.
I was really bored. I was too tired. I was too tired to watch
the against Uruguay, apparently.
That's against Uruguay, I was about to say.
Game.
Yeah.
So the ball's going out for a throw-in, right? And I go over to get the ball, and our third-choice goalie, Alan Roth, who's the funniest man alive,
right,
was lying at the side of the bench, leaning on, he'd got propped up with something, and he was lying, and he had suntan oil.
Yeah.
And he was giving it off. And I'm walking past him with the ball in my hand, he's like, all right, Stevie boy, hey! And he's slabbing it on the Ambrosel there. And he's got a drink beside. He's like, you want to like a drink? I was like,
more Mexico stories hopefully to come during the summer. Thank you very much, Mario. Thank you, boys. Kate will be back tomorrow alongside. Who's in the studio tomorrow? Are you here?
I'm not in. I got Food Americas at 12 a.m.
Oh, yeah, you got. What a way to find that out.
I might not be finished by then.
Midnight, baby. Midnight.
Ken Craig will be here tomorrow to talk about Juve City. Midnight Star.
Oh, my Lord, have mercy.